Before we get too deep into this story, let me just say one thing. If you're a mother, if you've ever stayed up nights worrying over someone who never even said thank you, this story, it's going to hurt, but it might also set you free. My name is Rosemary Delaney, and I spent the better part of 40 years in a warm kitchen, flour on my hands and hope in my heart. The bakery was never supposed to be anything big. It started in the back of a rented apartment with one second-hand oven and a few old recipes passed down from my grandmother. Kyle, my son, was just a toddler back then. He'd sit on the floor with a whisk in his hand while I mixed dough at 3 a.m. to make rent. When my husband passed, Kyle was 9. That night, after the funeral, I kissed his forehead and promised him he'd never have to go without. I didn't remarry. I didn't travel. I didn't rest. I baked. That little kitchen turned into a corner store, then a full storefront, and somehow, over time, Delaney's Bakery became part of the town. Folks would line up at 6 a.m. just to get our cinnamon rolls hot out of the oven. Kyle always said he was proud. He left town for culinary school, made it to some big city kitchen, and I was so sure I'd done something right. I thought, when he came back, we'd run it together. Mother and son, side by side. The perfect dream. So when he said he was coming home to modernize the business, I didn't question it. I gave him access to the business account, partial ownership, and even started teaching him every secret in the family recipe book. I thought, this is the moment. My work, my sacrifice, it's going to mean something now. He'll carry it on. He'll honor it. But what I didn't know was, Kyle wasn't coming home to carry anything forward. He was coming to erase it, and erase me with it. There are some things you never forget. The sound of your child's first cry, the first time they call you mama, and then the moment they look you dead in the eye and say, I wish you were never born. It was supposed to be a celebration. 32 years since I opened the bakery. I stayed up 2 nights straight prepping trays of lemon bars, cinnamon twists, Kyle's favorite double fudge cake. I ironed a floral blouse I hadn't worn in years. We rented folding chairs and brought out photo albums. Snapshots of Kyle in flour-covered aprons, his first cookie batch. That summer, he won Best Youth Pie at the county fair. Everything was ready. When the guests arrived, Kyle greeted them like a showman. He had new signs up, bold red letters. Delaney Bakehouse 2.0. Reimagining a classic. I laughed when I saw it. I thought, that's cute. Maybe a little over the top, but he's trying. He had a mic set up. Wasn't my style, but I smiled through it. And then he started his speech. It was supposed to be a thank you. Instead, it turned into something else. We're entering a new era, he said, grinning, holding a glass of champagne. One where we're not held back by outdated traditions. Honestly, I wish some of those things, and people, were never part of the story to begin with. At first, I didn't even register what he meant. I just stood there, holding a plate of coffee cake, frozen. But the crowd, they turned and looked at me. Kyle's eyes met mine. No warmth, no smile. I mean, no offense, it's just time to let the past die. Let the past die. I don't know if you've ever had someone say something that made your bones feel cold, but that was it for me. If you're still watching this, tell me something in the comments. Have you ever given your life to someone, only for them to act like you were the problem? Because in that moment, that's exactly who I was. The problem. The extra. The burden. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't cry. All I could do was walk back to the kitchen, slowly, like a ghost slipping out of her own story. No one followed. Later that night, I found the family recipe book tossed aside on the prep table, its corners bent, flour smudged. The one I gave him just last week. He didn't even take it home. That's when it hit me. He hadn't come home to carry on what I built. He came home to bury it, and me with it. People think betrayal always comes loud, screaming, slamming doors, thrown plates. But mine didn't. Mine came in silence. In slow, careful edits. Like someone was erasing me, page by page. After the party, Kyle didn't speak to me much. He said the business needed restructuring. Told me I should rest more, maybe spend time in the garden. Like I was some elderly guest overstaying her welcome in her own home. And just like that, I wasn't mom or founder anymore. I was in the way. He replaced the sign out front, took Rosemary off the website, even printed new packaging. No mention of me, no story on the back about how it all started in our kitchen. Even the old logo, the little whisk and rolling pin I sketched back in 1995, was gone. Customers would come in and ask, "Where's your mama today?" And Kyle would smile and say, "She's enjoying retirement?" As if I had faded into a cruise ship somewhere in Florida. But I wasn't in Florida. I was in the tiny storage room at the back of the bakery. The same room where I used to cool fresh pies, now turned into a place for me to sit down and relax. That room was quiet, too quiet. The ovens still roared, the register still beeped, but none of it felt like mine anymore. One afternoon, I checked the business account out of habit. I hadn't planned to meddle. I just wanted to see. My name wasn't there. Not as an owner, not as a signer, not even as a consultant. It was like I'd never existed. And what cut deepest wasn't the legal side. It was that Kyle never said a word. He didn't sit me down, didn't ask, didn't thank me. He just made the decision for me. He'd erased me. Quietly. Efficiently. Like peeling off an old label. Have you ever watched someone slowly write you out of your own story? Because that's what it felt like. It didn't come with yelling, it came with smiles, with, "Take it easy, Mom," with, "I've got this now." And maybe worst of all, part of me wanted to believe him. Part of me thought, maybe this is how it's supposed to be. Maybe mothers just fade out. But something inside me said, no, not like this. Not after everything I gave. They say grief comes in waves. But this wasn't a wave. It was the slow sinking of a ship no one noticed had gone under. Weeks passed. I wasn't asked to show up at the bakery. No one called. No one checked in. Kyle ran the place, and the customers adjusted. I stayed home. At first, I told myself it was temporary, that Kyle just needed space to settle into the new role. But one morning, I looked in the mirror and saw it. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked tired, worn down, and worst of all, she looked like she believed she no longer mattered. That scared me. I went back to the bakery, not to confront anyone, just to grab a few things. My old apron, some recipe cards, a tin of tea I liked. When I stepped inside, a young girl behind the counter looked up and said, "Can I help you?" She didn't recognize me. I smiled politely. "No, sweetheart, I used to work here." Her brows furrowed. "Oh, you mean before the remodel?" Before the remodel. That phrase stuck to me all the way home, as if my entire life was just a version 1.0 that got replaced. That night, I sat in the attic and pulled out a dusty old box. Inside were letters from customers, ones I'd kept over the years. Notes from people who said our bread reminded them of home. From mothers who said my cookies were the only thing their children ate during chemo. From lonely old men who thanked me for remembering their names. I read them slowly, one by one, until I found one. From my late husband. It was short, folded in half, tucked inside an envelope with my name in his handwriting. "Rose, if you ever forget how much you matter, read what the world says about you. You don't need applause. You just need to remember who you are." I cried that night, not because Kyle erased me, but because I'd almost let him. I almost believed that I had no value without being seen. But in that moment, I realized something. I was never erased. I just stopped speaking up. I had poured everything into being a mother. But I was still me, still Rosemary, still the woman who built something from nothing. And I wasn't done yet. After that night in the attic, I didn't cry again. Not because it stopped hurting, but because I finally understood. You don't win back your place in the world by asking for it. You take it quietly, and you build it again, even if no one's watching. I started small. First, I called my old attorney, Mr. Heller. He was retired, but his daughter ran the firm now. We met over tea. I showed her my name on the original incorporation papers, the silent clause I'd added years ago. A clause that said no full financial transfer could be finalized unless I signed it, and I hadn't. She blinked. You're still the legal majority signatory on the primary accounts. I nodded. And I'd like to freeze them. Within 48 hours, the bakery's main accounts were locked. Suppliers couldn't be paid. Orders bounced. Kyle didn't know what hit him. I didn't answer his calls. He left one voicemail. Mom, what the hell is going on? You're sabotaging everything. I didn't respond, because I wasn't sabotaging. I was reclaiming. Next, I bought a lease. Just 2 streets over, in a quiet little corner of downtown. Small storefront, low rent, no bells and whistles, but it had a working oven, a clean counter, and a door I could lock myself. I didn't name it. No branding, no logos. Just a handwritten sign that said, Open, fresh bread, come in. The first day, I baked 6 loaves. Only 2 people came. One of them, Mrs. Ellison, gasped when she saw me. Rosemary Delaney, I thought you retired. I smiled. Turns out, I'm not very good at sitting still. The next day, 5 more came. The week after that, I had regulars. No fanfare, no grand reopenings. Just the smell of warm cinnamon and people who remembered how it used to feel. Kyle sent a letter through a lawyer. Something about intellectual property. But the recipes? They were mine. Always had been. And the bakery name? I hadn't used it. Didn't need it. Because here's the truth. I never wanted revenge. I just wanted my life back. And for the first time in years, as I stood behind that counter, apron dusted with flour, and a woman hugged me because, you still make the best darn cornbread in this town, I realized I hadn't disappeared. I had simply been quiet. But now, I was awake again. And I was still here. A month passed. No headlines, no apologies, no knock on my door. But something changed. It started with a post online. A former employee from Delaney's, Jessica, uploaded a clip from that party. The moment Kyle said it. Honestly, I wish some of those things, and people, were never part of the story to begin with. It wasn't meant to go viral, but the town's Facebook page lit up. Is that about his own mother? Wait, wasn't Rosemary the founder? Shameful. People remembered. They remembered me. They remembered the woman who used to bring cookies to the firehouse every Christmas. The one who paid her teenage workers in advance so they could buy prom dresses. The one who stood behind that counter every morning for 30 years with a smile and flour in her hair, and quietly, gently, they came back. Not with parades, not with banners, just presence. Every morning, more people showed up at my little shop. They didn't ask why I was there. They didn't bring up Kyle. They just said things like, glad you're still baking. Feels like home again. This is the bread I grew up on. And that was more than enough. One afternoon, a young reporter from the local paper came in, asked if I'd like to do a story about the comeback. I said no. I didn't want a comeback, because I never truly left. He asked one last question. Why didn't you fight back louder? I looked him in the eye and said, "Because not everything worth keeping needs to be screamed about. Sometimes you just stand still and let the truth find its way home." Kyle never apologized, and I stopped expecting him to. That's the part no one tells you about healing. It doesn't always end with reconciliation. Sometimes it ends in peace. The peace of knowing that you didn't break, even when you were forgotten. The peace of knowing you gave your best. And when they erased you, you quietly rewrote yourself. If you're still here with me, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to rebuild yourself in silence after the people you loved made you feel invisible? If you have, tell me in the comments. Tell someone, because your story matters. Even if they tried to erase it, you are still here, and that means something.